Hey guys, it's your Peacekeeper coming at you with the next video in our redo of the How to Play series on the US battleship line. This is the Tier 6 New Mexico class battleship. And if you guys remember from my questions and answer video for the 1,000 subscriber mark, this is my favorite ship in this game right now. And I would kill to be able to see one of these ships in person. But unfortunately, none of them exist for me to do that. Let's dive right on into this how to play video then. The New Mexico class was a design evolution of the preceding Pennsylvania class of battleships. The biggest changes were the lengthening of the main guns from 45 calibers in length to 50 calibers in length. They also added the clipper bow to the front end, which created drier decks compared to the preceding Pennsylvania class. In fact, we'll pull up the Arizona here and you can see the difference. The Arizona is a Pennsylvania, one of the two Pennsylvania class ships. You can see the differences here. The New Mexicos, there were three of them. The USS New Mexico, the name ship, USS Mississippi, and USS Idaho. All three were completed by 1919 and served well through World War II. The Mississippi served till 1956 as a test platform for the Terrier missile system. The ships continued the long tradition of the U.S. standard battleship, and if you want more information about what that means, I've got a video for it. I'll go ahead and link it for you here. This is also the first standard battleship that players get access to in this game. It is one of three in this game, the Arizona and the Colorado being the other two. And also, just kind of as an interesting side history note, I'll try and get a good view of it, but what I'm looking at is right up here. This is not a clock, a 12-hour clock. This is what they call a ranging clock, and I found this kind of interesting. Basically, there was one of these on the front and one of these on the aft. It's right here on the aft, and it was designed to let ships ahead of you and behind you know what the elevation of your main guns were, so that whenever whatever visibility obstruction was in front of you cleared, they would have their guns pointed at the correct, or at least reasonably close to the correct elevation when they cleared it. Pretty neat little bit of history. I was always wondering what that actually was. In terms of service history, all of the New Mexico class battleships primarily spent their time as shore bombardment devices, and unfortunately, none of them really saw any true surface combat. The USS Mississippi did participate in the Battle of Surigao Strait on October 25th, and that battle line consisted of Mississippi, West Virginia and Maryland, which were Colorado-class battleships, Tennessee and California, which were Tennessee-class battleships, which were basically modified New Mexicos, and then Pennsylvania. The Mississippi was the only one of that group who was not sunk or damaged at Pearl Harbor, and her only salvo that she fired was the last battleship-on-battleship salvo in history. So that's kind of a unique history standpoint to it. But in terms of all the other New Mexicos, the USS New Mexico herself was the very first ship in U.S. history to have a turbo-electric drive as opposed to the direct steam-geared turbine drive system of the other New Mexicos. Basically, the boilers turned turbines that created electricity that then turned an electric motor which was attached to the shaft. If I remember correctly, though, that was removed later in the war and converted to, the conventional setup, mostly for reliability's sake. In-game, oh my, what is there this is by far, there's like nothing bad to say. This is by far one of the most fun ships to play in the game. It is one tough old bird. She can take a pounding, and with proper angling is downright impossible to do significant damage to. She has a turtleback armor scheme, which is just makes her very difficult to citadel up close. She has very solid front and rear bulkheads, so she's very difficult to citadel through the nose. She's just overwhelmingly an unbelievably tough ship. She has an amazing torpedo bulge for her tier, 42% damage reduction on torpedo hits. Her gun accuracy is solid and usable, and that 12-gun salvo is just absolutely devastating to anything that is found broadside within that range. This ship is a frequent dev strike deliverer. She just never lets up. If it's broadside and it's a cruiser, heck, I've done it to battleships. If it is broadside to you, those 12, 14-inch guns just wreak havoc. She does also have very good anti-aircraft for her tier. And, of course, as with all the standards, her slow speed is offset slightly by the fact that she has an incredibly tight turning radius, a 640-meter turning radius, and a 10.8 second rudder shift time. So she's very agile for a battleship. And that makes her just an unbelievable brawler. And, in fact, I would put a New Mexico against a Bayern any day of the week, and I would be willing to bet that the New Mexico would give her a damn good run for her money. Let's talk about her stats. She has 53,200 hit points and a whole crap ton of armor, 343 millimeters at the belt. 42% damage reduction on torpedoes. That's that torpedo bulge, which is just an unbelievably solid number. It's great. It just takes all the punch right out of most of the torpedoes you run into this game. The main battery consists of 12 14-inch 50 caliber Mark 7 guns in 4 turrets, so they are triple gun turrets. The secondary armament does consist of 18 5-inch guns. 8 of those are going to be 25 caliber in length. Those also serve as dual purpose guns for your anti-aircraft, and 10 of those are 51 caliber 5-inch guns that are purely secondary. So you have a total of 9 secondaries on each side. The main battery firing range with the main battery firing range extension is 17.3 kilometers. It's way too short without it, and I'll get to that when we get to the modules. The anti-aircraft defense. Yeah, she's very difficult to get through, and I guess the best way to put this is it's very good. For a tier 6, this ship is very hard to kill. If you get up tiered, it still holds its own against tier 7 aircraft carriers. Tier 8, nah, not so much. But tier 7, it still holds its own. It is certainly not lacking in that department. Her top speed is 21 knots. That is the U.S. standard. And we're still not done with that. We got one more tier after this. Her turning circle is 640 meters, 10.8 second rudder shift time. In terms of detection range, 13.8 kilometers by other ships and 11.3 by aircraft. On to our upgrades. Main armaments Mod 1. That's the staple. The second one, I'm going to take Artillery Plotting Room Mod 1, which increases the main battery firing range by 16%. And increases the secondary battery range by 5% while decreasing the dispersion of the secondaries by 5%. The only other option on this list that I would consider as being viable is Aaa Guns Mod 2. My reservation with Aaa Guns Mod 2 on this ship is that this ship has a tendency to end up in Tier 8 fights where the added range is really beneficial, taking that out to that 17.3 kilometers. Toss up a scout plane and you've got a very long distance to work with. And the guns are accurate at those ranges. It's not like you're just shotgunning it like the New York. The New York with added range is just ridiculous. There's absolutely no reason to add range to the New York. The dispersion is simply too ridiculous. So on this ship, definitely recommend taking Artillery Plotting Room Mod 1. However, if you do wish to take Aaa Guns Mod 2, that's certainly not a bad choice. I just think the Artillery Plotting Room Mod 1 is a better choice. Damage Control Systems Mod 1 has been a staple of the U.S. battleship tree since forever. And the last one is Steering Gears Mod 2, which reduces your rudder shift time by 20%. That just makes this ship that much more agile. Damage Control Systems Mod 2 certainly has its place. Propulsions Mod 2, not so much. I personally take the steering gears because I want to be able to angle the ship between shots and assist in bouncing shells. This captain is by far one of my highest level captains, which is depressing because it's 13, but in terms of U.S. battleship captains, that's one of my highest. And I stick to the formula. That's all I got to say to that, is just stick to the formula. This ship will treat you well when you get her fully upgraded. It is just a riot to play. I cannot stress that enough. Anyway, let's dive on into that battle video. It's a pretty good one. Alright, so this battle is 112,000 damage. And it is a tier 6 fight. There are carriers. It is 2 bogues, and they are both air superiority bogues. So not a whole lot going on the air battle. This is, of course, the absolutely terrifyingly bad map. I can't stand this map, and it is Shards. And this map, in my opinion, needs some serious attention and work. But that's a different subject for a different time. We are going to go ahead and dive into Shards. Now, the map strategy for Shards is quite laborious, is I guess a good way to put that. The goal of each team is to try and capture the point that is open to them. However, it seems that most people always capture the one that is not open to them. So, like, for instance, our team is starting on the north, and we should be capping A and B, while the other team should be capping C and B. What oftentimes happens is that, well, the exact opposite happens. Our team would capture C and B, and theirs would capture A and B. Well, they are going to go for A with a large contingency of battleships. And yes, so much freedom in this one match. 3 New Mexicos and 2 Texases. Texi? Yeah, 2 Texases in this fight that makes this the ultimate in freedom. Of course, we got an Omaha and a Bogue to throw in there, too, for extra freedom. But we are going to head down to A, but we are going to take the split route between B and A. And the entire premise of this is that we want to stay within range of enemy ships as they come into view at the start of the match. And by angling ourselves appropriately, we can mitigate any damage that happens to come into us. This also allows us to support any of our moronic teammates that go to C, which thankfully at the moment none do. So our goal here is to split the difference between A and B. We're going to wiggle ourselves back and forth as ships come into view, and you will see that right off the bat we get a good snapshot of their entire battleship line. Now, one of the nice parts about the New Mexico is her gun angles are very forgiving. You do not present much of a profile in order to bring all 12 of those guns to bear. You can see here just how little of a profile you're actually presenting, and this profile actually happens to be about ideal to bounce all the incoming shells that you will be getting too, especially at close ranges. All those shells are going to hit that belt and bounce, bounce, bounce. It's going to sound glorious. And yes, 2 air superiority bogues going at each other. But there is their Arizona, a Texas, a Bayern. And that Texas is broadside to us. That will be our priority. I was trying to see what my firing range is with the spotter up, but we're going to toss it up anyway because he's more than likely going to be into our range. And we are going to continue on. Somebody has damaged that Texas somehow. Kind of curious to know who. Texas is nearly perfectly broadside, so go ahead and line up our shot. Now watch this dispersion pattern. This is just an unbelievable dispersion pattern. And this is firing at 18 kilometers away. We end up getting 6 hits, 5 of which are penetrating hits, but we only do 5,000 damage. So what that tells me is that we ended up hitting a large number of modules and disabling or killing those modules, and it just didn't give it to us. I'm hoping those are those turret modules, and that those turrets aren't going to come into play later. Of course, now we really don't have much of opportune targets left, so we're going to engage the Arizona here. And again, look at that shot dispersion. That is a very tight pattern. 3,500 hit points taken off of the Arizona. To assist our team, we're going to continue our march on into A, and we have a broadside New Mexico. Now, granted, I'm fairly broadside to him too, and he is not looking... No, he is looking at me. We're going behind an island. was trying to slow down before we got around that island so that I could engage him before I disappeared, but unfortunately that did not happen. We did mitigate some of the damage given to us, though. Let's see, what else can we engage? Oh, Kirov, huh? Okay. Kirovs are relatively soft and squishy. He's relatively close range. Yeah, good night. 1,700 damage. What? Somebody else really shreked him, but I have a feeling that had he not died before all the shells impacted, there would have been a, dev strike in there. We want to continue to keep ourselves angled as best we can to other ships, and right now, unfortunately, I'm broadside to a lot of ships. And we don't want to hover around in that if we can avoid it. Right now, we're not taking any fire from anybody, so, we're getting away with it. And really, that shot probably should have gone to Mr. Richardson, especially since it only hit once and bounced it. Whereas Mr. Richardson is completely broadside to me. But the push continues into A. We must get A. We must get A for no other reason than to get another cap point. And you can see that we have teammates now that are all the way up at C, doing exactly what we shouldn't be doing on this map. We've got a Bayern that's coming in. He is going to be behind an island before my guns come to bear on this. But we'll be waiting for him when he comes back around the other way. In the meantime, Congo! And let the 14-inch guns loose on her. 6,200 damage. And angling ourselves. Gotta remember to use that rudder shift to keep yourself always angled to whatever it is that could possibly be damaging you. The ship does a really good job of mitigating damage, and I realize we haven't seen that yet. Just need you to bear with me a little bit. This Bayern comes out and around to, much to his surprise, I'm assuming, a whole bunch of ships. Probably not the position he wanted to be in. And now he is beached. Guess we'll waste that salvo on him. Take off 4,600 hit points. His secondaries are flying at Congo. Okay. Meanwhile, the rest of their team has pretty much abandoned him. The Texas is finally coming into view. Aha! Yes. Much more interesting target. We'll switch ourselves back while we also get our anti-aircraft firing in that direction. And again, look at his dispersion. About you got 1,000 damage. Overled him. So we missed. Anti-aircraft is doing its work. The gun turret traverse on these is very, very slow. That's the one downside to it. The Colorado is quicker, however, New Mexico seems to be a little bit more durable in the long haul. So again, Congo is still broadside to us. We are going to go ahead and engage her. And about 6K, which is interesting to say the least. Our secondaries have hit that Bayern not only once, but 3 times and started him on fire, I'm sure much to his annoyance. We are going to take this opportunity to turn and head to B, and the reasoning for that is quite simple. We need to keep them from capping B. Shot out on Mr. Bayern with the front 2, now the rear 2. And we got ourselves our second kill and 35,000 damage in total. Again, angling ourselves out and away. Our goal here is to intercept the battleships coming northwest from B, because they are going to cap B. Or they were, until somebody damaged them. I wonder if that's going to continue. Who wants to guess whether or not they will? No, they don't, unfortunately. No, they do capture it. We don't get the constant reset. And once again, we have New York. We did 1 normal penetration, 1 shell shattered, and 1 bounced. Fascinating. He is obsessed with this Congo, though, so good riddance. We will turn away once again and use our armor angling to mitigate as much damage as we can. And at this point, you know, we have more kills than them, but they are by far better off in the long run with 2 caps than we are. And a little bit of situational awareness would realize that Arizona, yeah. We picked up the Arizona, shot out on him. No idea what happened with that other spread. Only 1,000 damage. So it's a little frustrating right now, but we're going to turn this around and make this not as frustrating. The guns are accurate. The problem is the penetration. And I suspect that there's a wargaming reason for that, because the shell that the Arizona, the New York, and the New Mexico fired in this game has a very, very good reputation for penetrating just about everything that you could possibly shoot it at. And once again, we have a Texas sailing at slow and broadside. If we can get him, we will. Very slow. And we have cleared the mountain. Shot out. Look at that dispersion. Look at that dispersion. How many shell hits are we going to get? 4. 3 normal pens and an overpen. Pretty decent chunk of damage there again, about another 6k. This ship does excel in that brawling range, in those brawling ranges though, and the armor profile allows you to get away with a lot in that. But as I said in the South Carolina video, you know, one of the things that you definitely need to remember to do is to plan your engagements ahead of time. Do what you can to, you know, set yourself up to have the best engagement that you can possibly have. And you have to do that as early as you can, because these ships aren't particularly fast. And as Spectre Mage is more than willing to point out, that can be a huge disadvantage to anyone who's not used to it. And speed definitely is an advantage in a lot of ways. It helps you move around the map, but it also gets you into trouble a lot quicker. And oftentimes the ships that are fast also have really, 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 really weak armor. And they just take damage from all sorts of sources way, way easier than these slower standards do. So I much prefer the New Mexico's play style to that of the faster battleships. You can see there that I was aiming at his turrets. My goal there was to knock out a turret. He's bow on to me. There's not really a whole lot of other juicy targets, but if I hit that side plate on his armor of his turret, I can penetrate the turret and cause it to either become destroyed or get reset the reload on it. Now, you'll notice that I slowed way, way down before coming around this corner, and that's because I didn't want to be broadside to that Bayern when I came around the corner. I wanted to have a little bit of an angle to him. And this battle is when we start showing just how durable this ship really is. Bayern is not really paying too much attention to me, so we're going to go ahead and turn out and away from this engagement. And again, the whole reason we're turning out and away is because all of our support is still a ways away. We don't have a whole lot of support right here with us. Our secondaries are doing quite a decent amount of work. I'm actually quite impressed with how much work they are actually doing. You know, we're taking off chunks of hit points off of that poor Arizona. And we're assisting in the cap. So one other good reason to turn away. That Emerald, though, he's really annoying me. I mean, really annoying me. If it were up to me, I really think that I should... Oh, there goes the Arizona. I really think that I should save this salvo for him. And remove that gun from this fight. Unfortunately, he's not out and about, so we're going to have to be patient. And you can see that Bayern slowed down plenty much there to avoid taking too much damage. I am now in the process of turning around to go ahead and engage these two. However, look who comes around the corner. Mr. Emerald. Whatever could you be doing? Bayern takes the shots. Does 11,000 damage. He gets I'm pretty sure there's a Citadel hit there. We're going to return the favor. Okay, 5,500 damage. Power creep much. There's really not a whole lot of ships left in this match. We're going to continue to push these guys out as far as we can. You know, that Emerald is going to be a real big pain in the rear. But the Bayern is currently in full-fledged retreat. And we are at an angle where he can still do damage to us. And this is the one downside to the New Mexico in Tier 6. Both Warspite and Bayern can penetrate the front bulkhead on her. And that Emerald turns right into those. Good night. Yup. Keck indeed. And he just made it into that Z-Battles montage video. For those who remember, he was in there. I held to my word. We've got ourselves a New Mexico straight ahead in this Bayern, and then their carrier, wherever their carrier is. Mr. Richardson over there in the New Mexico, he is basically going to burn to death. Sure, why not? We'll shoot him. And our 4th kill of this match. That one was probably more kill stolen than anything. No, shameful, I know. Shame. Shame. So now we're back to duking it out with the German that can lol pen us. So our key to this engagement is going to be to drag him into range of other help and present as little of a profile as possible to minimize the chances of him getting a Citadel hit. Unfortunately, he is also very capable of turning in and negating all the damage I have. Thankfully, this Furutaka here has managed to launch torpedoes at him and get his attention. And as a result, we can get ourselves off a pretty decent hit. 6,400 hit points taken off. And we are sitting at 100k damage for the match. And we have turned this from a possible loss to a guaranteed victory. And you can see just how effective armor angling is. You know, we're still taking damage. We're still taking, I would call it, reasonably large chunks of damage. But it's not like we're getting, you know, one-shotted and lol-penned completely to death. And there is the 5th kill for Kraken. 111,544 damage. And that poor Bayern didn't even see it coming. So this ship is capable of deleting things as it sees fit, as we saw with the Emerald, as we've seen with all these other ships that we've hit and sank. It's a very capable ship, and it prints very good games rather consistently. And I really enjoy this ship. I really do. Again, 111,545 damage. Kraken thrown in there with a Dev Strike. 1,685 base XP. There is the damage report. And 232,000 credits. Anyway, like I said in my Q&A video, this is by far the one ship that I would love to see in person and unfortunately can't. It is such a fun ship to play in World of Warships, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Anyway, I'm your Peacekeeper. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.